Do you ever find yourself blurting out, "sorry," even when a stranger accidentally bumps into you on the street? Or maybe you are the kind of person who handles every problem alone, preferring to burn out in silence rather than ask someone for help? Society often praises these traits, labeling them as pure kindness, maturity, or fierce independence. But what if psychology tells a different story? What if, behind the mask of a perfect person who never causes trouble, lies the silent trauma of a child who had to grow up all on their own, simply because no one was there to answer their cries? Today, let's unpack 7 seemingly harmless habits that are actually the fractured psychological blueprint of childhood emotional neglect. We often look at that one easygoing friend, the person who never complains, never demands anything, and always just goes with the flow, and we assume they were simply born with a naturally sweet disposition. But psychology suggests a much heavier truth. This extreme goodness is rarely just a personality trait. It is often a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. To understand why, we have to explore a concept extensively researched by clinical psychologist Dr. Jonas Webb, known as childhood emotional neglect. Unlike overt abuse, which leaves visible, undeniable scars, emotional neglect is completely invisible. It is not about the terrible things a parent did to you. Rather, it is about what they failed to do. It is the quiet, ongoing absence of emotional support, validation, and response during your most crucial developmental years. When a child's feelings are consistently minimized or ignored, their brain quickly learns a devastating lesson. To survive in that environment, they internalize the belief that their needs are a burden, forcing them to shrink themselves down and become emotionally invisible. To truly understand how this invisible trauma manifests, imagine your daily life as a quiet, exhausting loop. You are handed a massive, overwhelming challenge, perhaps a heavy project at work or an emotional crisis. You are silently drowning, yet when someone offers a hand, you immediately push it away with a polite smile. This brings us to the first habit: hyper-independence. For you, asking for help does not feel like teamwork. It feels like a profound weakness. This is not just a strong work ethic, it is a deep-seated trauma response. Your brain learned very early on that you are the only person you can truly rely on. Closely tied to this is the second habit: people-pleasing. Despite being utterly exhausted, when someone asks you for a favor, you instantly say yes, and you are terrified of conflict, silently equating your entire self-worth with your ability to keep everyone around you comfortable and happy. You adapt to their needs, completely forgetting your own. Yet while you are infinitely forgiving to the world, the third habit dominates your internal monologue: ruthless self-judgment. You have a tendency to turn all your anger and frustration entirely inward. You are exceptionally harsh, punishing yourself mercilessly over the smallest, most human mistakes, while extending boundless empathy to others for the exact same errors. When the sheer weight of this cycle finally breaks you down at the end of the day, you encounter the fourth habit: difficulty naming your emotions, known clinically as Alexithymia. Sitting alone in the dark, you feel a crushing weight in your chest. But if asked what is wrong, you wouldn't have the words. You simply feel empty, completely numb, or vaguely sad without any clear logical reason. This silent void feeds directly into the fifth habit: always feeling fundamentally flawed. Even in a room full of people who care about you, you carry a lingering, deep-seated sensation that you are somehow different. You feel as though you were born with a psychological glitch, standing on the outside of warm social connections, forever looking in through a glass window. When this isolation triggers a mental panic, the sixth habit is heartbreakingly revealed: the inability to self-soothe. When a real emotional crisis hits, you have no idea how to calm your own nervous system down, because you were never properly held, rocked, or validated by a comforting adult. When you were small, you never learned the internal language of self-comfort. And finally, this entire loop culminates in the seventh habit, trying to become invisible. You walk softly, close doors quietly, and try to take up the absolute minimum amount of physical and emotional space. Your ultimate goal is to simply exist without becoming a burden, quietly paying the price of your own inner peace, just so you never bother anyone else. Why do these patterns run so deeply within us? The answer is not a flaw in your character, but rather a profound disruption in your biological and neurological development. When a child experiences an emotion, they instinctively look to their caregiver for a response. In a healthy dynamic, the parent reflects that feeling back, a crucial psychological process known as mirroring. This seemingly simple interaction is what literally wires a child's developing brain, physically building the complex neural networks required to process, recognize, and regulate human emotions later in life. But what happens when that mirror is blank? When a child's emotional distress is consistently met with silence, emotional absence, or physical distance, those vital neural pathways simply do not develop to their full capacity. This leads to a heartbreaking, distorted psychological adaptation. And imagine being a highly sensitive child who is repeatedly labeled as too dramatic, a crybaby, or whose tears are met with heavy sighs and closed doors. To survive in that environment and maintain a basic sense of safety within your family system, you had to internalize a devastating core belief. Your feelings are inherently wrong, and your needs are an unacceptable burden. To stay safe, you learned to completely suppress your inner world. This survival mechanism is strongly backed by science. Extensive studies in developmental psychology demonstrate a direct, undeniable link between childhood emotional neglect and a significant decrease in adult emotional intelligence and regulation. You did not simply forget how to feel. You were biologically and psychologically conditioned to silence yourself. It is crucial that we do not romanticize these behaviors. And society might constantly applaud your fierce independence or praise you for being the incredibly mature, low-maintenance friend. But we must be completely honest. This is not a superpower. It is a survival mechanism running on overdrive. When extreme self-reliance and relentless people-pleasing are pushed to their absolute limits, the real-world consequences are devastating. You are not just being kind. You are actively draining your psychological reserves. Over time, this inevitable exhaustion leads to severe emotional burnout and a deep, hidden resentment toward the very people you are trying to keep happy. Worst of all, in your constant, desperate effort to accommodate everyone else's needs, you slowly erase your own boundaries, ultimately losing your authentic identity in adult relationships. Growing up with emotional neglect is like building a grand, magnificent house, but forgetting to pour the foundation. To the outside world, the structure looks solid and impressive, yet inside, there is a constant, echoing void where the warmth should have been. Recognizing these 7 habits is not about casting blame on your parents or dwelling on the past. Instead, it is the first and most courageous step toward your own healing. It is about finally returning to that quiet corner of your soul, listening to the long-ignored cries of your younger self, and choosing to become the nurturing, protective parent that your inner child has always needed. You are no longer invisible. You are seen. You are heard. And most importantly, you are finally worth the effort of being known. It is crucial that we do not romanticize these behaviors. When society might constantly applaud your fierce independence or praise you for being the incredibly mature, low-maintenance friend. But we must be completely honest. This is not a superpower. It is a survival mechanism running on overdrive. When extreme self-reliance and relentless people-pleasing are pushed to their absolute limits, the real-world consequences are devastating. You are not just being kind, you are actively draining your psychological reserves. Over time, this inevitable exhaustion leads to severe emotional burnout and a deep, hidden resentment toward the very people you are trying to keep happy. Worst of all, In your constant, desperate effort to accommodate everyone else's needs, you slowly erase your own boundaries, ultimately losing your authentic identity in adult relationships.